The Russian MiG-41 stealth interceptor, due to make its maiden flight in 2025, is an advanced long-range interceptor aircraft. Some reports claim that it will have the ability to reach speeds of Mach 4, the equivalent of 1.5 kilometers per second. This is an insane speed that would allow the interceptor to fly from New York to Moscow in less than 2 hours. Russia has for years relied on the MiG-31, an extremely powerful long-range supersonic aircraft, to protect its vast airspace. Think back to the 60s, when the U.S. developed the State Route 71 high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft that was adopted into service. This plane had a speed of 3,000 kilometers per hour and could climb to an altitude of 20 kilometers. It was created using early stealth technology and was unofficially called the Blackbird. At the time, Soviet-made air defense systems used in the conflicts in Vietnam, Laos, and North Korea could not cope with the State Route 71 because of its speed and flight altitude. This explains the need to create the MiG-41. The Soviet Union was engaged in the development of a military aircraft that could repel the threat from the U.S. Scout. This led to the creation of the MiG-25, which in the late 1960s was adopted by the Soviet Army and successfully intercepted the State Route 71. It can be assumed that the MiG-25 won the race for supremacy because it had the same speed as the Scout, but the altitude ceiling was twice as high. In addition, 1,100 copies of the MiG-25 were produced, while the Americans produced only 32. It is believed that the U.S. Air Force abandoned the Blackbird because of the huge financial costs of its maintenance and technical problems associated with takeoff and refueling. 1 hour of flight was $220,000. Many experts are convinced that it was the Soviet MiG-25 interceptor that caused the failure. In 1976, a defector pilot hijacked the MiG-25 to Japan, and later the Soviet Union received the hijacked interceptor in a disassembled condition. This was the reason for the rapid development and replacement on all military aircraft identification system for more complex, as well as changing the coding algorithm. In 1979, they began serial production of the MiG-31, which according to NATO classification was named Foxhound. This aircraft is of great interest because it has its unique role in the great race between the two great powers. Many people know the Tom and Jerry cartoon, where they fight with unrelenting gusto, just as the two powers maintain their competitiveness on the international stage. Russian aviation still worries that production of the MiG-31 was completely halted in 1994, but they have been modernized with the latest technology. This is why there is such interest in the MiG-41. According to aviation news portal Aviapro, the first flight of the 6th-generation interceptor may take place as early as 2025. After ground and flight tests, the long-range interceptor will be adopted for service with further modifications in 2028. This information has caused surprise and concern in the United States, which is the world leader in the number of experiments with aircraft known as the Experimental X series. Although they have set speed and altitude records, many non-specialists consider them to be full-fledged airplanes, and they are deeply mistaken about that. Let's get this straight. The X-15 was North American aviation's first manned experimental rocket plane, which set a world record for planning altitude of 107 kilometers. Although there is no sharp boundary between the atmosphere and space, 100 kilometers can already be considered space. The peculiarity of the prototype was that it could not take off on its own from the airfield. Instead, the B-52 bomber was used to lift the rocket plane to an altitude of 14 kilometers and accelerate to a speed of 800 kilometers per hour. The X-15 would then detach itself and fire its rocket engine, powered by anhydrous ammonia and liquid oxygen. The X-43 was an unmanned experimental hypersonic aircraft that took to the air with a bomber and reached a record speed of 9.5 Machs, equal to more than 11,000 kilometers per hour. This specimen, however, had no landing system and was, by design, sunk in the Pacific Ocean after the experiment was over. It should be noted that, by definition, the aircraft must have a landing gear support system for takeoff and landing. The Americans are concerned because the McCoy Corporation is planning to build a fully functional MiG-41 military aircraft, which could lead to Russian air dominance. A Russian analyst confirmed the report about the MiG-41, noting that Russia is working on the Foxhound successor in great secrecy. The country is currently focused on refining its latest fifth-generation heavy stealth fighter, the Su-57, known as the Felon by NATO codification. The Su-57 was created as part of the PAKFA program as a promising frontline aviation system. However, the new MiG-41 is considered to be a step above the Su-57. Design characteristics indicate that the MiG-41 will be based on the flying wing principle and will most likely resemble the U.S. Air Force's sixth-generation fighter developed under the NGAD, Next Generation Air Dominance Program. In the future, according to Russian news agencies, the MiG-41 may be transformed into an unmanned combat vehicle. Statements were made at the defense exhibition that the new MiG-41 will be a completely different aircraft and not just a modernized version of the previous model. It will be equipped with the latest stealth technology and integrated advanced weaponry with modern avionics. Thanks to this, the fighter will be able to operate in Arctic conditions and carry a large number of weapons on board, as well as to intercept targets at very long distances. In the early 20s, the development of radioisotope locating stations for Russian sixth-generation fighters was completed, which will be equipped with a laser system. The new system will be capable of intercepting hypersonic missiles, as well as performing combat missions in space at very high altitudes. A multifunctional long-range missile system based on a dual-mode solid propellant engine is being developed. According to U.S. press reports, the main feature of this fighter is its ability to operate in outer space outside the atmosphere. Although it is not considered an orbital station, if this prototype enters the Russian Air and Space Forces, it could pose a new threat. It has been announced that the MiG-41 will be equipped with new means of striking satellites, giving it control over them. Despite the lack of clarity about the engine, according to some reports, the propulsion system is already ready and is codenamed Item Number 30. This engine is currently being tested and refined on the latest models of the Su-57, a heavy fighter that will begin serial production in 2019. In addition, individual onboard systems for the future Russian sixth-generation interceptor are being tested on this aircraft. We do not know what the MiG-41 superfast interceptor will be like, as information about it is strictly secret. However, we can speculate on the basis of information that leaks over the internet. Military aircraft that are in service also remain classified and will be hidden for many years to come. Given the advances in technology over the past 50 years, we can assume that flying across the ocean will become comparable to a normal cab ride. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any interesting news.